Hey everybody, VP with Metaverse News One here, and I first want to say please excuse the background noise. I'm not sure how much the mic is going to pick up today, but there is going to be some. But a really quick video today. We're just going to go over the patch notes that have come out this week and talk about their impact on the game overall. Some are much more significant than others. And then if we have time towards the end, we'll just go ahead and take a quick look at my lands and see how they're doing, because we really haven't seen them since we first started playing them. But on to the patch notes. So I'd actually like to start with the patch notes which were released this morning, because these are by far the least impactful. These are really just all cosmetic changes. So there's a UI visual for passive generation, and I've noticed this when I played today. There is like a neon bar that goes around the box that shows your passive generation, and I guess it's just there to make sure you don't forget to click on it, which is nice. I always remember to click on it, but again, it's more of a plus than it's ever going to be a minus, so that's good. And then game effects optimizations. We've optimized various game effects to improve performance and visual quality, which tells us nothing. It's a very, very vague statement. Maybe that's just the lead into the fixes down here. And there's really not one fix that is even remotely impactful to me. But it's good to know that they do pay attention to UX, because you always want that to improve over time. And like I said before too, none of this is a bad thing. It just has very little impact on the game itself. So let's go ahead and turn it over to the patch notes that do have a very big impact on the game itself. And those are going to be the ones that came out earlier this week. And that is going to be this one right here, patch 1.0.3. So you will notice on fuel conversion especially, if you recall in the alpha, the fuel conversion, especially the resource conversion, you were putting 1 in and getting like anywhere from 1.2 to 1.5 out, which was just silly. That just meant all you needed to do was have as many converters on your land as possible, and you were really taking advantage of that arbitrage and getting the best of it, which again takes very little skill and sustainability-wise doesn't make any sense at all. So the way it was at maximum efficiency, 150%. If you put in 20 Hyperion, you would get 18 Solon or Krypton. And this is totally fine. This makes sure that you can't just spam converters on your land, because you'll never get to this efficiency if you do that. And you wouldn't be getting 20 for 20, but you would be getting 18 for 20, which I thought was fine. But even this has gotten better. So now, if you max out your efficiency, you can convert 20 Hyperion, for example, into 21 Solon or Krypton, which means you are getting a little more, which I don't think is worrisome, because you are spending time to get this done. So at the end of the day, it's not really a 1 for 1.05 swap. When you factor in time, it does make it more of a 1-to-1 swap, and it also prevents, like we said, spamming converters just to gain an advantage before. Illuvium has done a really, really good job with making sure people can't game the system. You can get advantages by playing the game better than other people play the game, of course, but that is far different from gaming the system itself. And the reason they did this, and it makes a lot of sense too if you've played the game, it says we want to be careful with tuning these as it directly affects net fuel production, but we feel this change is warranted because efficiency is relatively harder to get, which is true. Getting to 150% efficiency, especially for fuel converters, is really, really hard. I don't think I've been able to do it yet. Now, I guess you could kind of spam power stations around the side, but I haven't really gotten to that point because I'm always needing extra slots to build things right before I upgrade the Nexus. It just always seems to turn out that way. So I always want to make sure I don't just put, a million power stations on, because I'm pretty sure if people are doing that now, because of these fixes and because of Illuvium making sure people aren't gaming things, I don't think it's going to be the best move down the road. Now you have this information here for stage 4 converters, which I don't quite understand, because none of my converters are at a stage 4. So I just can't relate to that yet. But main building upgrade costs are also really nice. Certainly makes the game go a lot faster in the early game. Now with the Nexus, it's pretty great all across these levels, which we love. I saw somebody in Discord complaining that, for example, they just spent 10 Hyperion the day before when they could have spent 5 afterwards. And they were legitimately upset about this. I'm like, I don't understand. Most people, you guys know, if you want to listen to this channel, you understand that we take a very long-term view. And there's some people who just can't see even 5 feet in front of their face. It's like, dude, I would happily sacrifice this to get something like this in return. I'll give you 5 if you give me 600 later. But this person didn't understand that, and they wanted to complain. Now, the game giveth and the game taketh. If you see on the engineering workshop, for example, it does get better at level 5, but actually gets worse as the levels get bigger. And while we don't love this, I also understand this. The game really has to pay attention to its own longevity, and it needs actual data in front of it, and that data is us playing, before they can sit there and with any certainty say, okay, we need to make this game either easier or harder, or easier in certain places, harder in other places. And don't forget, while everybody here at the channel, we're all kind of pulling for each other, we're all against each other too, especially in the blueprint race. There's only so many blueprints to go around, and that is player versus player. So if you're going to make the game harder, what you're doing is you're making it harder for everybody, and that's fine. I have to abide by this. The game is going to be harder for me, but it's going to be harder for everybody else too. And as long as we're all playing by the same rules, I'm okay with that. Now, as you can see too, extractors have become easier across the board, no matter where you are, at least up to level 6. I don't know if you can go past level 6 or not. I don't remember. But this is good to know too, because even though I don't mind the game getting harder, we're always hurting for resources at some point in the game. So getting these things leveled up, which I really like to do as early as I possibly can, has just now become easier. So now check this out. As far as fuel extraction goes, in a previous patch, we lowered the extraction time of fuel without changing the cost. At the time, we were hoping that opening up stage 4 resource extractors from their fuel gate would be able to fill this gap, but we found this is not enough. So we are changing the resource cost of fuel extraction for all stages. We also noticed significant lack of resource sinks at higher level plots, so the following adjustments are made. So again, this is them saying, hey, we didn't know how to adjust this until we actually saw and watched you guys play the game. But now that we have that data, we can make the game make a bit more sense and extend our longevity. So what you're seeing here is things get easier at the early stages, which is nice. We can build things up, but they actually get harder at the later stages. And this is probably to prevent people from just forming these huge megacity empires right at the start and flooding the market with fuel, which again is what it is. It's a silly thing to complain about. Now, on to your passives. Passive resource generation from your actual converters. We can just go ahead and go down to the chart here. What you're going to see is that early on, well, really across the board, no matter what stage you're on, the amount they get maxed out, I guess, has been cut in half, which is great if you're an active player. Less so if you're more of a passive player, but they probably want to promote active play. And in the early stages, you're getting more. Then by level 3, it doesn't change, and then you're actually getting less, but the exchange is getting, like I said, the time is getting cut in half. So if you're active, this number actually goes up from where it was before. So in a sense, is it more punishing, more passive players? I guess so, at the later stages for sure. But again, they need to balance things out, and this is their way of doing it. And that's it. I mean, really significant changes. If you're playing the game right now, you feel them. These will not be the only changes that come our way. Remember, the only thing constant in life is change, so you need to be able to adjust to it. It's just like if you were running a real business, like a real factory, for example. Nothing is going to be consistent across the board. Things will always change. Prices of raw materials, prices of power, all this type of stuff. And crying about it does not make it go away. And even if you get enough people together to go to the council and cry about it, when have they ever cared about the happiness of Illuvium Zero players? They just don't. They're in it for their own longevity, which they should be. I'll give them that. Players don't always know what's good for the longevity of the game. We know what's good for ourselves, but at the end of the day, you want this game to be as successful as possible. And if it's going to do that, it has to get its numbers right, and the sooner they do that, the better. Now, as far as numbers that are just flat out off, look at how cheap ILV Token is right now. We've had a situation where altcoins as a whole have really fallen. The price of all crypto has fallen this week based on the FOMC meeting and Powell's speech. So if you think this is a reflection of the game overall, I'm going to disagree with you. I've seen some people talk about that in Discord too. Discord's just not a great place for intelligent conversation, at least as it pertains to how this game's going to end up doing long term. You have some people, they got to be young too. that, and I suspected this to happen, that they come in the first couple weeks and just think it's over because the game does this or the game's not doing this. I just don't have any time for it. But we've talked about the token on this channel before, and my average is still right about $69, $70, and I feel like I got in very cheap. And I think when it's all said and done, I'm going to look back and say, wow, I got in the ILV token at a really cheap price. And it's significantly cheaper now. So just saying, you may want to take advantage of that. Because how many times have we seen it jump into the hundreds and everybody says, ooh, I really wish I got it when it was down at 50, 40, 60. You know, you can either continue living with that regret or you can take advantage now. Not financial advice. But if you want to stick around for a bit, I'll show you what's going on my lands. Okay, so some interesting things going on here. We can scroll all the way down to Crystal Shores, which is my bottom plot. Now with Taiga Boreal, here's what's interesting. This is definitely at a higher level than everything else. We did a lot of work that first day, if you remember that video. Then, for some reason, this was the only plot that wouldn't load for 2.5 days, which was a bummer. But compared to some of the problems other people were having, you know, I made it known to say, hey, you know, is this happening to anybody else? I made a support ticket. And they finally did fix it, but I didn't want to complain too much because I knew other people had it worse. There's still some people out there that can't play their lands, which really, I feel for those guys. That is not cool. That is not fair in any way. The only thing I will say is let's just be glad it's happening now as opposed to later when your land is already cranking out fuel and trying to get blueprints and things like that. That to me is the only thing that would be worse. But despite that 2.5 day break, it is still my top plot because, like a lot of you were probably doing, during those 2 days after day one of Illuvium Zero, I was playing Overworld. And yes, we still have that Overworld strategy video coming out. The only reason it hasn't come out yet is my strategy has changed a bit since I've actually been playing the game. I can see where the actual opportunities are now. But anyway, if you guys want to see what's going on our home plot, everything is working pretty well. The main goal is, and I'll click these things while I talk, is to get to a scanner at this point. That's our midterm goal, I should say. And like I always say too, I want to get all my resource extractors going at about a level 5 clip before we get there. Right now, this one is, and this one is, and this converter's about to, but the rest have not. So that still has to happen. And let's just see how much a scanner costs. You're looking at 1.1 million silicon. You know, the Nexus 5 we already have, 20 Hyperion, not a problem, but that 1.1 million is going to be not really extracting it. I mean, once I think I get all of these cranking at max efficiency, we can get there a lot quicker. But in order to have 1.1 million silicon, you have to be able to store 1.1 million silicon. Now, all my storage is over here. Some of it is at level 5, some of it is 4. I need to get all of these to 5, and I'm probably going to have to go and build new ones. I have 3 of each right here. I'm probably going to have to build 4, and they're probably going to bleed into this little square right here just to save space. And those are going to have to go up to 5s, and I'm probably going to have a 6 in there somewhere too. That's just how it is. For all you tier 1 players, it's going to have to be even more because for some reason you can't store as much on tier 1 than you can tier 2. So that's what I'm dealing with now. On the passives, I'll show you that. Oh, it doesn't show it there. I wonder... crap, that one's still being built. We'll go to another plot. Let's go... I really go anywhere, but let's go to Crimson Waste. See if we can find one to utilize there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get our carbon. And you see this line drawn around. It turns neon green when it's fully around, but it's just to say, hey, you know, you have some passives here, you might want to get them. So you do that, and that's really all that is. And I will say I'm going to make a video soon, an Illuvium Zero video, talking about which lands to buy if you want to buy more lands or if you want to buy lands for the first time. And let me just say, at least in early game, which I still consider us to be an early game right now, you really want to have one of each extractor available on your land, because if not, you really have to compensate hard in other ways. And as we saw, these extractors are no longer one-to-one unless you max out efficiency, which is extremely hard to do. So let's just say that was the one major lesson I've learned. I already kind of knew, but it really hammered that point home. And wow, I really need to upgrade these storage units, don't I? Okay, well, that'll be something to do when we end this video. And now's probably a good time to end the video. Thank you for joining us here on Metaverse News One. We will keep these videos coming along with that overworld strategy video, along with the Illuvium Zero buying guide, which will be coming out shortly as well. Thanks again, like and subscribe, and we will see you later.